So it's 6 o'clock. I'll call our audit committee meeting to order. It looks like we do have a quorum. So if we will, let's review the minutes from the November the 12th, which was a short meeting. Basically, it was just two like chairs. Motion by Overman and second by Gregory. So our main discussion is I'm sorry, all in favor, thank you. I always jump ahead of myself. So our main discussion items is our FY 2024 audit review. And I'm gonna give you guys a few moments to look over that. It looks like we did have 3 findings. One from the mayor and building code, some funds were not deposited within the 3 days of collection. Water and sewer utility department, the office failed to properly issue purchase orders. And the office of director of schools, the school federal programs fund had a cash overdraft of 2106 on June the 30th of 2024. I know all 3 of these do have corrective action plans that they have. I like to call them CAPS, so it's just abbreviation. They are on the back. We actually if you look in your packet on page 213. They have the recommendations from the comptrollers and then the management's response on those. Miss Amy, if you don't mind me asking, do you mind speaking on behalf of, or Mayor McCall, either of you, the building codes, the one from the mayor's office?
Not a problem. You just need the summary of what has happened.
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a statement from Ms. Myhan. Usually the process for building permits was to have everything completed in a packet for pickup by the owners or contractors. The packet also includes payment receipts for the permit, which was dated the day the permit packet was completed, not when the payment was received. And she submitted the payments to the trustee's office the day the permit was picked up, which means payment was received, and over several days in between those 2 events. Some property owners and contractors do not take up the permits in a timely manner, creating a violation of the 3-day receiving limit. So beginning, I believe this would be back in December when she learned of this. Starting today with the future permit packets, the permit payment receipt will not be dated until the day the permit holder pays for the permit, which is what it should have been all along, and she understands that. Right. And the packet will be completed beforehand, save for the completed payments.
Thank you. Does anybody have any further questions in regards to that finding? Thank you, Ms. Bay and Mr. Crook, for attending our meeting. The water and sewer utility department did have a repeat finding of properly issuing purchase orders. Would either of you like to elaborate in regards to that?
Yes, under the circumstances of this year's audit, it was brought to my attention, the board has not met yet for our monthly meeting, so they'll see that within their next board meeting. And apparently the office was handling the purchase orders in a different manner than what the county policy is right now. And Tony and some part of his staff and I and the board are working to strengthen the policies and policy procedures within the organization. I know that the last one was under different leadership when it was received, and it might be why it might have not been brought to strong attention. I can't answer that, but I did go back and pull it right when I found out. And so we have found and been researching for purchase orders for, just to fill you in, what we are looking into is due to having a lot of emergency responses or essential needs. We have a lot of essential needs, with the services provided by this department that requires a lot of proactive work and not to be reactive. It's just not, and that's not the way they've been working. They just don't want the same formula within the office. And that's what it looks like in both of these audits from 2023 and this one, and both that I've seen in the research that I've done. And so we're working with the department to prevent this from hopefully ever happening again. And I know that they're hesitant because the county's policy puts a strong burden on them, but we do need to do our due diligence to make sure that if we can't abide by that exactly, we need to present a new policy to the board. Make sure that we keep this county within and city within compliance.
On a second note, and just a question that I have, what procedure, and I know y'all have your corrective action plan that y'all will be monitoring, but what are they doing as of right now to stay within the guidelines, to stay in compliance? I mean, I guess basically what I'm asking is the bookkeeper, does she keep a log? What is the procedure is basically what I'm asking.
And that's the procedure. She puts a law over handwritten.
Okay,
And that's the out of compliance, is that it's, you need to make sure that it's not necessarily handwritten and not necessarily, and to confirm that it is approved by the right individuals for the purchase. If it's not an emergency situation.
okay. I guess my next question would be and I'm just looking at is a repeat. And we don't want a three-peat,
Agreed.
not in this circumstance. So, are we doing any, or can we do any internal reviews? Say the bookkeeper puts it into some kind of program, whether it be an Excel sheet or something like that, prints that off and say like every month, could Tony review it and then take it to y'all's board and then possibly, and I know these are extra steps, but once you ever get it started, it's continuously there. So could we put into place that, say the bookkeeper does it monthly, she takes it for your review. I mean, she's reviewing it, then you've got a second review of Tony reviewing it, and then it's presented to you guys as the board members, and then say, and I'm not saying that it has to physically come or we have to meet in regards to it, just emailed. I mean, you could email it to Amy or email it to me, and then I can make sure that the other committee members from the audit are seeing it, say like quarterly.
So the way that they are doing it is already with the bookkeeper and Tony approving it.
Okay,
So they're already within those steps. It's just that they found that there was some, and correct me if there's maybe, there was some handwritten and so there was a handwritten instead of an actual form that was filled out. And so, Ms. Thomas has offered some suggestions along, I believe, with the auditor. And then we've also researched a couple other metro utility service providers. For examples for their policy to be as efficient as possible for the teams and to stay within compliance for the future.
okay. Not to, once again, not to inconvenience or add another step. Can something be sent to the committee, either, like I said, to Ms. Thomas, like every quarterly? Just to ensure that we are staying in compliance.
So we will, don't know if we do nothing in a quarterly budget, so there should, I mean, and we do different things that are monthly and quarterly, we like that, and I know this isn't unpaid. It is a figure conversation, but it's also a paperwork. A proactive paperwork being within compliance. I believe that we could definitely forward you where we go with our planning on this.
And I'm not saying that it has to be down to the specific, it's just basically, you know, I guess I'm saying basically, say January. Or say February 1st. I'm just throwing out an example, say February 1st, we reviewed all purchase orders. Da, 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 we are in compliance, just something simple.
If they're signing a document that states that they'll stay within the county policy, then yes, ma'am, they should send you a quarterly document when they find infraction. And
Okay.
so I see no reason why they don't for this year. My goal is, my dream and wish is an unrealistic goal that by Tuesday we have a new set of purchase order procedures, because that is such a, and I know you know this as well, that is such a deep document that I do not want it to have a Band-Aid. I want it to have a great policy that protects everyone.
Exactly.
From everything from emergency purchases to bids. And
Right.
so that will, I was hoping we could have something like that on Tuesday, but that's unrealistic with that on the board that swiftly. And, but what I would like to do is, yes, I will recommend to the bookkeeper and Tommy's, he's the man in charge. So I do think your team will have a problem with, providing a quarterly, this is an infraction. So within a quarterly report stating that if you're in compliance, if you're failed, not in compliance within the
Right.
quarter. Because you stated in your manager's comments, you concur, and then Emily stated that she would abide by the county. Well, as long as we're abiding by the county until the new rules and procedures are created for that department.
It should be,
Well,
right.
that should work, I think, for the board, and I can't speak for the board, but I would hope it would work for the board, and I'd like to present that on Tuesday if that would still happen. But if that is what you request as the board for the audit committee, I see no reason why not. Then.
Any thoughts?
I have one question, I guess it's more directed to Amy. And Paul, we mentioned this being a second consecutive year we had this particular finding. Are there any consequences if we have like this repeated?
Eventually it can be, it affects our debt rating. And, so we need to go off and get loans or whatnot, it can affect our ratings.
Okay. Thank you.
That is not our to finally say that.
Of course. I will hunt you down.
And I know this gentleman right here, I've come to know him quite well in the past couple of years, and I don't believe he would want that for this organization either.
Does anybody have any further discussion on that finding?
I think pretty obvious, I think read down there the reason for it. You put yourself in a bad position if you don't do it. And it can happen if you no reason to realize. But when you don't have purchase orders, this you don't amount, that you don't buy. Put yourself in a bad position.
Great.
And don't tell me you get that position.
All right off the bat.
Okay, moving on, our next item was with the director of schools. It says the school federal purchase funds had a cash overdraft of 2106 on June the 30th of 2024. And I spoke with Dr. Satterfield. Forgive me because I'm going back to my notes in my phone. It looks like that those were, and Amy might can. Those were ESSER funds, helping with the summer camps program, to my understanding. And they had requested them in June for payment that would have been on July's payroll. So this is, of course, a first time finding, which with the ESSER funds, they shouldn't have, this should not ever occur again, but they have, and do you put a corrective action plan in place. And I should have tabbed in my papers, I'm sorry. Yes. Page 220, and Miss Angie Of course, I think Miss Angie was pretty tore up over this, cause they out of like, I think, what she said, what was I told, maybe 15 years, they had never had a finding, and this was the first ever, so. To my understanding, she was pretty,
Yeah, think bragged about that multiple times.
pretty tore up over it, but, I mean. It's understandable, it was requested and, you know, it was not to be paid out until July, so.
My only concern is in the management response is the, the last sentence, the trustees tax council was never in jeopardy of being overdrawn because 39,000. There are payroll checks written in June, we're not scheduled to direct deposit until July 15th, August 1st, and August 15th. Why are we writing payroll checks in June that aren't gonna be paid out for 2 months?
My guess, and this is a guess,
Right.
is that they're set salaries, and so they were
Mhm.
able to schedule those ahead of time.
Just, writing a check before you have to just doesn't seem like a good idea typically.
True, the payroll's kind of a different beast. If you know exactly what it's gonna be, you can go ahead and schedule those, and you can make adjustments along the way, because as you stated, they're not gonna be deposited or scheduled for ACH until those dates.
And I know. Just working for the school system years ago, you know, you had the option to have it. Paid across the year, so you knew
Right.
exactly. What that check was gonna be. Even though it might have been summer months.
Right.
And that's what it is, it's strictly summer months, so. Does anybody else have any further questions on the audit review? Like I said, our main objective was just meeting to, like we always do, is just basically to review. Audit findings, if any. If we have no other questions, we'll go to B, the fund balance statement. I don't know that we really, I mean, they're already submitted to the comptrollers and they've already approved them, so. As a committee, I don't know that we really technically have to make a motion or a second to accept those.
Okay. Well, make sure, thank you.
Yeah, we're a little, audit's kind of a little different breed, I guess you could say. Because usually, you know, ours is just strictly to review unless we have something that we know is an upcoming finding that we have identified, and usually Miss Amy's gonna be the first one to call me and say, hey, we know we're gonna have an issue. And a lot of times I'm in her office when they are here and I'm like, how's it looking, you know? And we do have a local, Delaney's usually here when. And so, and I mean, she's always been welcome to answer any questions or when I walked in, so. Fund balance. What I can see our fund balances are looking. About where to go on. You guys have any questions in regards?
On the increase in the 141, I assume that that's probably like the money for the field house construction that's being paid out this year.
That would be my guess as well, without asking Angie or Dr. Satterfield, if that is the bond proceeds that were deposited. It does not.
Of course, I think Dr. Satterfield would have been here tonight if it hadn't been for them meeting with their regular school board meeting. Cause he had asked me, he was like, Beverly, do I need to be there? And I was like, no, just, we already have the corrective action plan, we already know. And he went through some more details, just explaining it to me, so I could speak on behalf.
The one thing, the corrective measures have been taken care of. That's.
And I think
that's what it's all about.
The majority of them have been taken care of before the comptrollers had ever even left the building, to my understanding. Is that not correct, Amy? They had already put something in place to.
Well, what they found, like anybody's coming, that young there is, or like,
No.
this and really improper.
Yeah.
And,
Just strictly paperwork. So I will request, do we have a motion to accept the fund balances for the FY 2024 audit? We'll have a second.
let's see,
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Gregory and a second by Mr. Ford. All in favor? So do we have, is there anything, any other that anybody would like to discuss in regards to the audit committee?
Yes, at our last meeting, we were talking about, or you were talking about, plus want to be the reminding people to get their training done.
Correct.
That we,
I do believe an email was sent out, if I'm not mistaken. I can't recall when the email was, but I do know there was one after that meeting, and I believe Miss Amy sent it out to all commissioners in regards to getting the training done.
We just don't know if it was continuing training, they do not update that list.
Right, that is exactly, it's not updated. I know when I last looked it up from the comptrollers, there was quite a few that was still not in completion, but
I'll see if I can reach out to CTAS and see if I can get an update.
and I know Mr. Taylor, I think we mentioned at work session the other night about everybody getting their,
The conflict of interest.
conflict of interest, yes, filed.
There were 5 commissioners that had not submitted that, and I had sent an email directly to those.
okay.
And I know whether you complete it online or even if you mail it in, they are very diligent about sending that person an email stating we have received it. So you are in completion with that, because I just mailed mine because I couldn't remember all my passwords, so I just printed it out and mailed it.
It is a difficult system to get into.
And
Yes, it is.
I have no trouble at all.
If you forget your password, you
It's-
have to go.
it's
through-
bad.
No, it's magic, that you can save password on your computer.
I know, but if you only knew how many passwords are on that front computer, I mean, come on now.
Well, I keep a document on my Google Drive with every password, anything,
Oh,
where.
That's horrible.
Mm.
Well, but if I ever forget, I can
Well,
open it
no,
up
it
and.
saves. I mean, it helps, but of course, if you got a son in college and you gotta remember all his passwords on top of all your passwords and work passwords and, so, I have no law to tell. I printed mine and I mailed it in, but they did send me an email stating that they had received it, so way before it was due, so I didn't stress over it. But now that is something, and they should be able to tell us who is, I know I went back in and did more, even though I thought I was already
This is
compliant.
something that restarts every January.
Right.
Yeah.
It always starts in September.
September,
Okay.
The training, that's what we're, right?
right,
the CTAS
on
training?
training, yes,
Yeah,
it's September, it goes from what, September
I think
to
it's
June?
due, it's due the end of it by the first September 1st,
Mhm.
right?
I think
Okay,
so,
I think you're right.
I think that's correct,
That would make sense because those are your.
Right, exactly.
but I couldn't remember how many hours I had actually done, and I think when I was sitting at the office, in January, I was like, I had some, during the cold weather, I had some time, so I just sit there and I
have not
did
done
some-
anything for this year.
I did some other, I went ahead and did more.
Basically, sat down like Saturday 2 weeks ago, since I didn't have anything else to do. I had a strict day and just,
Did it all?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, I'll
got
wait till
all the
August, I'll do mine in August.
Yeah,
well,
but
if the video ones, it helps that you can like make the video 2 times faster and
And that's what I do, I turn it on in
Yeah.
the kitchen and just let it play and.
keep up with it.
But a lot of it is very I mean, it helps,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
very informational, I mean. So it does help understand meetings and different,
But a lot of procedures
Procedures.
know that there are no consequences and they're not gonna do it.
no, you're exactly right.
I'm never going to tell anybody off.
Right.
Mm-mm.
They can't, I mean, there's no sense to the law that require it.
They can't, you just kind of get put on the naughty
It's
list.
name on the list.
Mhm. And everybody in the state of Tennessee can see it.
Yeah.
But now
They know where to look.
we do have quite a few that are grandfathered in that, like Mr. Ford, that doesn't have to do that.
That's right.
Been
grandfathered in quite a while.
right, but now some of the ones that used to be commissioners and were out for a while and have came back, they still have to do it,
Right.
you know, but
Anybody contacted them, still ain't? I had one contact me, I said, you need to go see Jack, come record me. Somebody should come right now, I don't know.
so, do we have any other, is there anything else on other that anybody would like to speak on? Do we have any public comments?
Sure.
Most do. Most do.
Right.
So be it. All in favor? Let's go home.